Welcome back to Broken Electronics. I'm Lee, and it's great that you could stop by to take part in today's little adventure. An adventure it is. Now you'll notice we're here in Studio B, aka the guest room, as opposed to my usual setup in Studio A, aka the master bedroom, or the occasional setup of the music studio, aka the banjo cave. This is not the video I had intended to do today, by any means. I've got several G4 things in mind that I've got to get out there. I've got the 2008 Mac Pro upgrade series that I want to continue working on, as well as some other things too. But something has come up. Now, I've done a series on installing macOS Big Sur onto my test 2010 Mac Pro, which I call Mac Pro 5,1C, the third one, not a mission critical machine. I successfully got 11.2.3 installed with no real issues at all. Waited for a while, 11.3 came out, and I tested Patch Sur's built-in updater, where you can do updates to Big Sur without having to create another USB stick. That worked, but it was a chore. But it worked. Well, very quickly after 11.3 came out, we got 11.3.1, which is an important security update. That wasn't available through the updater tool. Now, I read in a forum post, I forget exactly where, Ben Sova put something out saying that this update could not be done that way. You'd have to create a USB drive again. Okay, I tried to do that. It failed. I tried about 7 times. It failed every time, right at the end. I tried an alternative route, the Micro Patcher Automator. Same thing. It failed. Finally, I was able to create a drive to install using my late 2015 27-inch iMac, which is natively supported on Big Sur and is in fact running Big Sur. That created with no real issue. I used that on this machine which is in front of me, 5,1C. And I got it to install, but it was a big chore. The installation would freeze. I'd eventually have to force the machine down, start it up again, get into the installer again. And I think that happened 2 or 3 times, and finally it got installed. Well, something's clearly wrong. Now, I also did a video where I upgraded the storage on 5,1A in Studio A. That, worked fine, but I ended up with that video with 2 NVMe PCIe card drives with essentially the same installation of Catalina. Now, my plan had been to install Big Sur on one of those 2, keeping the other as a backup. Makes sense to me. But having gone through this issue with 11.3.1 and that being a mission critical machine, I really don't want to mess with it. I've been doing a lot of research about this on Reddit, and particularly there's a long thread on the Macrumors forums, where else? Reading a lot of that, it seemed, first of all, I'm not alone. Secondly, it seems that most of the very wise people posting in Macrumors seem to think this is related to some kind of conflict with PCI Express cards. The people who've been successful getting it installed have done so onto either spinning hard drives or SATA 2 connected SSDs. Then a problem with USB cards. Now, this machine has both a PCIe NVMe controller card and a PCIe USB 3 card. So, having read all of that, my plan is to take this 512 gigabyte SSD, install it into the Mac Pro, it's set up on a drive sled already, boot the machine back up, clone the Catalina installation on to this drive. Then shut it down, take out both PCIe cards that are in there, the controller card and the USB 3 card, boot back into this drive with that same Catalina, take a USB installer for Big Sur, and install it on this. Now, if the theories from Macrumors and Reddit are correct, it should then install on this. Now, what I'm going to do after that, I'm not even going to think about that first. I'm going to see that we actually get this installed. Incidentally, I've got two different USB installers to deal with. One was the one that I made from Persisting, but I also made one from the OpenCore Legacy Patcher project. A bit more involved to do that. I'm going to try that first and see if that works out. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work. I wipe this thing clean again, put back the NVMe controller drive, and we're still running Catalina. Now, there's one other trick involved here, because I just got this. This is another Mac flashed AMD Radeon RX 580. I was trying to avoid buying this, just because anyone who's priced graphics cards these days know the prices have become insane. This cost 2.5 times what I paid for the PC cards that I'd gotten before. It cost about twice what my other Mac Flash card. Now, this isn't intended for this machine. It's intended for the one down in the Banjo Cave. But since it's here and since it's out, we'll put that in. There's an eBay purchase. Nice to notice that the seller included the dual mini 6-pin to 8-pin cable that's needed. I've already got one in there, but I will need this eventually. I wish I'd known that because I ordered another one, but what are you going to do? Also, I thought this was a really nice touch. He included an HDMI, actually it's a DisplayPort to HDMI adapter. Now, these cards generally, we can show you right here, and it's true, I think, of all of them. You've got one DVI, 3 display ports, and 1 HDMI. Yep. So I guess the converter, if you're running dual monitors and want both to be HDMI, fine. Now, basically, I have been running dual monitors for a bit here with this machine. One is DVI and one I connect by HDMI, so what the heck. And I think it's got I'm pretty sure it's got a display port on it as well. Well, anyway, these are the things we're doing. I think I'm going to install these things. We'll do that off camera. You don't need to watch that right now. This is going to end up being long enough. So, if I haven't bored you to tears already and you're interested in seeing what happens, please stay tuned. Well, now that was an adventure. More of an adventure than it probably should have been. But in any event, you see we do have our Radeon RX 580 with 8 gigabytes of video RAM, and I'm happy to report the boot screen is there. The Plex Tor SSD I was unable to get it to connect when it was in that carrier sled thing. I really don't know what's causing that. So right now it's just sort of hanging in there, but it is connected. So for the purposes of making this happen, I suppose we'll say good enough. All right. Boy, I am so glad I bought a license for Carbon Copy Cloner. Alright, so we need to enable the task, and select a source would be WDSSD. You cannot copy a volume to itself. Oh, really now? And the Plextor SSD. Did I not format that as APFS? I guess I didn't. No matter. Okay. So we're going to clone, and this will take a while to run, not too long, but I'm not going to make you sit through this by any means. All right. Stay tuned. And the backup task completed successfully. It only took 12 minutes and 36 seconds, which is quite quick. Of course, it's coming from the NVMe drive onto a SATA SSD. SATA 2 admittedly SSD, but so often when I do these clones, I'm doing it from to or from a USB drive, even USB 3. Okay, so we can quit out of Carbon Copy Cloner. Take a look here in Plextor. There's all the appropriate folders we'd expect to see. So, what I'm going to do will be to shut this down, take out the USB 3 and NVMe controller cards, boot back up into the Plextor drive now, and go from there. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back again. Now we have the Plextor SSD. I have taken out the NVMe drive. This is the 1 terabyte hard drive that's got Mojave on it. I took out the other hard drive. I mean, I kind of had to take it out to make it a little easier to get to the PCIe cards, and there's no point in putting it back in. It's pre-fail anyway. Alright, so looking about this Mac. Yep. Fully upgraded processors of 48 gigabytes of RAM, and the startup disk is Plextor SSD. This is the one we just cloned. Alright, now the third item you see over here, install macOS Big Sur. And inside it we have install macOS Big Sur. But there is something else in there. The OpenCore EFI boot, which is an alternative boot screen. And if we come over here, this is not nearly as simple, you know, with the wonderful graphical user interface that Patched Sur has, or for that matter, the MicroPatcher Automator does very nicely too. You do have to create the install drive manually through terminal using create install media. Although, I mean, there's a guide here. In fact, this is a very, very good guide. If you search for OpenCore Legacy Patcher, this first link that comes up takes you here, and you can go to Get Started, and you're going to find a long tutorial on exactly how to do this. It does take time, but it does work. All right, there's a couple of downloads there. I mean, you do have to download Mac OS. You do have to download the OpenCore patcher. You know, there's a number of things you need to do, but it is clearly explained, and if you've got any experience whatsoever in using terminal, it shouldn't be that bad. Okay, so what we're going to do now will be shut down the machine, start it up again with the Option key, and I'll also have to set the camera up so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Stay tuned. Okay, we're waiting for the boot manager to come up now. It will, I'm sure. Okay, this is promising. We have the two, it's Catalina, that's Mojave. Here's the installer. Now what we need to do is to click on EFI boot to get us into OpenCore, and we will. And here is the OpenCore. And we, come on. There we go. Now, the thing is, I've been here before where I'm at this screen. Okay, it's already doing more than it has done in the past. Hang in there. We may get into the installer sooner rather than later. Stay tuned. Well, we're about half an hour into this. It made some decent progress for maybe 5 minutes. As best I can tell, it is actually progressing. At this rate, I'm recording this on a Thursday. Might have Big Sur installed by Tuesday. Stay tuned. So, this is what happens. It gets halfway to loading up the installation. I actually stopped it and then started it again to see if a second try would work better. No. I watched an entire hockey game, and this is where we are. So, this is probably not going to work. I am going to try one more thing. I'm going to re-download a fresh copy of the installation, make another USB drive, and see if that works. I don't have much hope, but let's give it a try. Stay tuned. Well, the new download of 11.3.1 and the fresh USB installer has at least got me into the installer. That doesn't mean we're going to get it installed, but it's progress of a sort. Well, stay tuned. It just went back to the bootloader very, very quickly, which is not completely unexpected. I tapped to go back into the installer, and here we are. As I understand it, that may happen one more time, but this is promising. Stay tuned. Okay, this is not what I was expecting. I thought it would just go right back into the installer, but it's just going to sit here unless I click this. So, either this is going to work out, or we're just in a loop here, because this looks like it's starting back from the beginning. Stay tuned. Well, it just put me back at the bootloader and then automatically restarted the installer. And that may not be wrong either. I really don't know. So we shall see. Stay tuned. Alright, so after that last restart, it's been sitting here for a couple of hours. Progress bar has not moved. I seem to recall the one time that I successfully got 11.3.1 running using Persisting, admittedly. This happened. So I powered it off and restarted it. Always takes a while to get the chime on these things. One might wonder why I'm even bothering. For the challenge of it, for one thing. For the future of them. Alright, so we should get the boot picker. Yep, we do. Now, I'm going to choose EFI boot, and then the installer, and let it try to pick up. And I may need to do this a couple of times, and we'll see. But that one time, using the Big Sur, the Sur patcher, it actually installed. Well, anyhow, stay tuned. Well, it had hardly gotten started, and it stalled. So I just shut it down, turned it back on, and it came back up, and it's moved along. Let's see. Stay tuned. Okay, we just missed that. It's restarted itself a couple of times to the OpenCore bootloader. This last time, it had the Plextor SSD pre-selected, which makes me think it's going to boot up. If in fact it's installed, it's not that bad a process. It only took me 2 days. Yeah, a day and a half maybe. And I did sleep in there some, not much. Okay, we'll bring you back when something happens. Stay tuned. Well, that's no fun. We've got Operation Prohibited. Well, let's see what happens. I'll see if I can figure something out. Stay tuned. Well, it finally booted. Now, it took me, what, 4, maybe 5 tries to get here. Patch updater cannot be opened because the developer cannot be verified. That's okay. I bet that's from DOS Dude 1 anyway. Optimizing your Mac. Yeah, I'm going to have to do something about that. Okay. About this Mac. Show in Finder. Well, look, I'm going to deal with that later. I do want to get about this Mac to show. 11.3.1. Same old Mac. All right. Now, this is consistent with what I've learned from reading Mac rumors. You can get it installed, but it takes multiple efforts to try to actually get it to boot. All right, so I'm going to have to figure all this stuff out. But hey, we made some progress. Stay tuned. Okay, quick update. Yeah, the patch updater was part of the OpenCore legacy patcher. I just had to open security and privacy and allow it to run, and then it ran, and now we're fine. Now, what I'm going to need to do, I almost hate to after all this work, is shut it down and put the PCIe cards back in. The thing is, I'm pretty sure that in order to get it to boot again, I'm going to have to, try to boot it 6-7 times. Well, anyway, we're somewhere. Stay tuned. The backup drive here on the USB 3 card, it's mounted up, it's working fine. Alright, but of course I'm going to do the best I can to break this system, in the name of science, of course. So first thing I'm going to do is open up what must be my favorite app. It has to be my favorite because I use it all the time. Alright. Now, enable this. My plan here: select the source and connect this backup drive. So I'm going to clone the most recent Catalina from the NVMe SSD onto the Crucial drive. What's on there is pretty recent, but just to be on the safe side. So we'll get that done. Grant full disk access. Okay. Yeah, this is basically new, isn't it? All right. That too. Okay. So we're going to quit. All right. Alright, so here's our job, and we're going to clone this. Okay, so this is going to have to run. Once this is done, and we have that installation safely protected, I'm going to run Carbon Copy Cloner again and clone the Big Sur 11.3.1 from the Plex Store drive onto the NVMe drive. All right, stay tuned. Well, Carbon Copy Cloner has really come a long way to copy 95 gig of data, 8 minutes 4 seconds. How about that? All right. Waiting to... Okay, so yeah, it isn't showing all the possibilities, so we're gonna have to see what the boot picker does. Yeah, and Drive and Copy Cloner had warned about that it might not appear. All right, well, stay tuned. Okay, here we are in Big Sur. Unfortunately, cloning the installation from this Plexstore drive, which is in one of the drive bays, onto the NVMe drive, which is on a PCIe controller card, did not work, and getting out of that was kind of a mess. I ended up, I couldn't just clone the backup drive back onto it. I ended up having to boot into recovery, use disk utility to erase the drive, then boot into the backup drive, and I was able to clone it, and everything was fine. Kind of a mess. I have been able to boot back into Big Sur, although there are certain problems. You'll notice I'm doing a screen recording. The reason for that, actually I'm doing a camera capture of the screen. I wasn't able to do a screen recording. I could do it, but it wouldn't save. So this is a little flaky. Now, that could be because I've been playing fast and loose with this. But it's a test machine, so what the heck. What I'm going to do now is to go back to using the OpenCore Legacy Patcher and try to install it directly onto this SSD, the NVMe. You know, I'm not going to record all of that. I'm sure it'll be basically the same procedure that I went through struggling to get it onto the SATA SSD. But at least if you want to see if this has actually worked or not, stay tuned. Well, it got quite late last night, so I decided not to do this last clip, but I did manage to get this installed. We'll have a look at about this Mac. And here we see 11.3.1 on the Mac Pro mid-2010 with all of our upgrades, including our nice Mac Flash card. And from looking at a little bit this morning and early this afternoon, I can say it seems to be behaving very, very well. I did try plugging in the second monitor, and that shut it down, so I had to force the machine off. Well, it didn't shut it down. It shut off the main monitor. I can try plugging it in and then rebooting and see if that solves it. But that's the only real glitch so far, and that may be solvable. Now, is this worth doing? Probably not. Certainly not on a daily driver machine. Not a machine on which you depend. I would stay on Catalina right now. You're still getting security updates. It's well worth waiting that out. Yet this does install. That's a good sign. Most things seem to work. I'll have to work with that dual monitor setup and see about that. But all in all, it looks pretty good. One big problem, though, and something to be very aware of, it does take multiple boots. When I had to shut it down in order to get the display working again, it took me 2 attempts to boot up. It does, for some reason that I don't completely understand,
it seems to be a little more successful booting up in verbose mode. And if nothing else, when you've got verbose mode going, you can see a little more clearly when it's hanging and where it's hanging. And usually just try it again. But when it does boot up, it boots up pretty quickly. So yeah, I suspect this problem here is gonna get solved. I'm gonna leave this for right now. Oh yeah, and the other thing I wanted to point out, we are on the NVMe SSD, and it's working quite well. I can plug things into the USB 3 card. Basically, it seems pretty good. So I'm going to live with it some and see if I notice any other problems. But yeah, wait on it for now. Let the geniuses who are working on this figure out what's going on and how it can be solved so it's a smoother experience. But these machines aren't dead yet. Well, in any event, be good to other people. Be good to yourselves. We'll make this world a better place, but since it isn't, please take very, very good and careful care. I may have another video following up on the Big Sur 11.3.1 experience on this machine. I've certainly got a bunch of G4 things coming up. I need to get back to the 2008 Mac Pro series, and I'm thinking we got a good chance to get that with Big Sur up and running. So, in any event, until those things are available on the channel, this has been Broken Electronics.